Phelisa, thank you so much for joining us.
Good afternoon, and good afternoon to the listeners.
Yes. So, what are the issues with South Africa's fiscal framework that seem to be threatening the fledgling unity government?
Firstly, let's just talk about what are the components of the fiscal framework. The first one is that it's a framework that is used to guide taxation. It guides borrowing. It guides spending of the state. It guides debt management. And on the back of that, it also needs to highlight economic growth initiatives. So the standoff really is on several things. But of course, one of the things that really has become so important regarding this budget is the issue of VAT increase, which is value-added tax increase. So the second biggest political party argues that the VAT increase will not only choke South African economy, but also will choke citizens in terms of spending, but also having surplus income with negative impact for businesses. While the ANC argues that they have presented a robust, ambitious State of the Nation address, which then needs to be financed. So in their own way, they think that VAT will be one of the tax policies that they're going to trigger to make it sure that it actually funds its ambitions to build the economy.
We're actually talking spending, debt management, tax increase, economic growth, and the DA, that is Democratic Alliance, is coming around to say they are rejecting the fiscal framework along the pattern of this line of thoughts. Was it that there were no stakeholders' engagements across the vested interests within the parties before coming up with this fiscal framework?
Well, I think that's what is actually signaling. In fact, you would recall that the budget was actually postponed, which was meant to be on the 13th of February. And the Democratic Alliance actually opposed the budget that was presented in them. And what was also signaling was that there must have been no political engagement. I think in between that, we also got information that in fact, even within the governing party, there was never an intense proposal, right? So, a consultation. So, and I think this is happening on the back of an economy that is already on its knees, that is really struggling to recover post-COVID, even though emerging economies have actually been able to recover. So DA, for instance, right, would accept that increase of VAT, but they're doing it in exchange for repealing of several laws. So meaning that, in fact, there's a political game that is being played. It's not entirely an argument that VAT should not be used as an instrument to generate income for the state. So instead, they are negotiating for the repealing of other regulations which will fulfill their own political constituency.
So we're looking
amongst those, it's NHI, it's a Basic Education Act, and then the other one is the
there's the Expropriation Act and the Bella Act.
Yes, land expropriation, yes. So what they're doing is they're using the budget to actually gain what we would call political ground and appease their primary constituency. But also I think they want to show their muscle within the GNU, in that they want to see if the ANC would actually back off if they are actually presenting those proposals, which I actually found it. I think it's overstating their political influence over the ANC, over the GNU itself. And I think what is actually the outcome of last night is a strong indication that they are not entirely quite influential as they thought they would be. So meaning that the ANC has done intensive work in lobbying other organizations, political parties within parliament. Hence, you saw that it was being passed. What now DA is left with, it's particularly an egg on their face, and that's why they are actually pursuing a legal action. So they're pursuing the legal action again to really push for the for that political muscle, but at the same time, they are challenging the procedural grounds onto which the discussion of the Finance Standing Committee were actually handled.
Well, interestingly, the DA is willing to accept the 0.5% VAT increase. I mean, when we continue to see these political squabbles and game of weights being played out, looking at the South African economy, I mean, doesn't it say so much about what their actual purpose is, or what their, their interest, where their interest lies? Because I'm trying to put this to you and even ask if you are actually in tandem or support this particular fiscal framework, if it will transform the South African economy when it is eventually ratified.
Well, I mean, at a personal level, to be honest with you, I do think that the government had other options than increasing VAT. I think already the South African economy is really shrinking. I mean, the industrial output has been on the decline. We're experiencing, 32.9% of unemployment. So in essence, it means that increasing VAT, in fact, is actually what we call an economic leakage, meaning that all the gains that the citizens and businesses have actually accrued from monetary policy interest rate reduction in the last 3 quarters, the VAT is actually capturing that back into the public purse. Meaning that, and this is happening on the back of the fact that, by the way, with even those interest rate reduction were quite nominal, because we're coming from an interest rate increase of about 3 years from during COVID and even post-COVID. So this was really, really the first 3 quarters where we were getting a little bit of reprieve. So the VAT captures that. The second issue is that the 0.5% of VAT does not give government, the significant collection. It's only about 28 billion rands. So it's really not significant. I think the second, which is really probably about just roughly about 1.9 to 2 billion US dollars. So it's not really significant. The second one is the fact that we perceive, really as heterodox economics, we perceive this VAT intervention as it's consistent with the shortcuts that government has been undertaking in how macroeconomic policy and economic management in South Africa. And that is just not willing to go through an extra mile. And this is happening on the back of, by the way, SARS, the South African Revenue Services Commissioner actually indicating that there's no need to increase VAT, to increase any form of taxes, but as the institution, they would really like to get additional financial injection so that they could recover, almost about 800 billion of taxes within the economy, which as a result of either evasive behaviors of tax amongst businesses in particular.
Okay.
So that's what is really happening. And I do think that this tension kind of like is signaling an instability of the government of national unity, and that both investors in the markets
now, Phelisa,
are likely to start losing interest. Losing confidence.
Yeah, definitely. We begin to see that the possibility of investors shying away from the South African government might actually impact negatively on its revenue drive. But we hope that there could be some sort of consensus on this matter. for the fast rising economy on the African continent. Phelisa Nkomo, an economist, thank you so much for sharing your thoughts with us.